There was once a young man named Ethan living in a small town in Oklahoma. From a young age, Ethan had dreams bigger than the wide, open skies he saw every day. He wanted to be a successful entrepreneur, not just for the money, but because he wanted to create something that mattered. Something that could fly on its own, like an airplane breaking through the clouds. But for years, Ethan stayed grounded. He worked at a local grocery store, made enough to pay rent, and lived a safe, simple life. Every day, he woke up, clocked in, smiled at customers, came home, watched TV, and repeated the same thing. Deep down, a fire burned inside him. He had ideas for a business. He had designs in his journal, logos he'd sketched, plans he'd mapped out, but none of them ever took off. Why? Because he was afraid of takeoff. He told himself he didn't have enough money to start. Or the right experience. Or the perfect timing. Maybe next year, he'd whisper. Once I've saved a little more. Once I've done more research. And time kept passing. One evening, Ethan visited the nearby airfield. Planes soared into the orange and purple sky, and he watched them in silence. An old man, Captain Harris, a retired pilot who now gave flying lessons, noticed Ethan sitting quietly. "You like airplanes?" the captain asked. Ethan smiled. "I do. I've always been fascinated by them. The way they just take off." Captain Harris sat beside him. "You know," he said, "a plane is built to fly. That's its purpose. But if it just sits on the runway forever, no matter how perfect its engine, no matter how much fuel it has, it'll never reach its destination." Ethan looked at him. "What if the weather's not right? What if something goes wrong during takeoff?" Captain Harris nodded. "That's always a possibility. But the plane was never meant to stay parked. Neither are you." Those words hit Ethan hard. That night, he opened his notebook. He looked at the business idea he had been refining for over 2 years, a custom eco-friendly leather goods brand. He had everything he needed to begin, a small online store, a few suppliers, and even a friend who offered to help with social media. He just had to take off. The next morning, Ethan registered his business. It was scary. There was no guarantee of success. But he remembered what Captain Harris said, the plane was never meant to stay parked. In the months that followed, Ethan's life changed. He didn't sleep as much. He worked after his grocery shifts, fulfilling small orders from his garage. Some days were slow. Some days felt like turbulence. He doubted himself, wanted to quit, but he kept going. Each small win felt like rising altitude. He wasn't on the runway anymore. He was in the air. A year later, Ethan quit his grocery job. His brand had taken off across the country, thanks to a viral TikTok video and a partnership with a local artist in Austin. Orders were coming in from New York to Seattle. He started hiring part-time help, upgraded to a small warehouse, and began dreaming even bigger. Ethan's journey wasn't perfect, but it was real. He often shared his story on podcasts and in schools, reminding young dreamers. You can't reach your destination until you take off. The runway is safe, but that's not where you belong forever. Today, Ethan lives in Denver. His company supports sustainable jobs and donates 5% of profits to youth mentorship programs. And sometimes, when he needs to reflect, he visits a nearby airfield. Watching planes soar reminds him of the moment he chose courage over comfort. And every time he hears the roar of takeoff, he smiles. Because that's the sound of faith. The sound of risk. The sound of destiny. Moral of the story. You can plan all you want. You can fuel your dreams with knowledge, passion, and resources. But unless you take the leap, unless you take off, you'll never know where you could have landed. Planes don't belong parked. And neither do you.